Hello everyone, today in this video I'm going to be talking about my journaling habits over the past year, what changes I've made to those habits, and the reason that I made those changes. This is going to be a three-part video series covering the topics of journaling and kind of everything that I've learned in the past year or so. Part 2 will be about the plans that I have for the next year ahead, 2025. And part 3 will be the advice that I would give to anyone who's looking to get into journaling, or even if you've been doing it for a while, just some tips that I'd like to pass on that I've kind of learned from my time over the past year journaling. So I've never really journaled much in my life before I started about a year ago. The closest thing had been letterboxed since 2018, which is a form of journaling. I'd been tracking my films that I've seen through that. I started journaling for mainly two reasons. The first being that I wanted to get into doing tarot readings around the same time as well. That was another thing that interested me. And the other reason was I was trying to do some self-improvement at the time and make some changes in my life. So I'd heard about journaling and I did a bunch of research by watching several YouTube videos about journaling methods as well as tarot spreads. There were mainly three videos that I drew inspiration from. Those will all be linked in the description, but the first one was a video by Ali Abdaal, which had a few writing prompts that I used for my journaling. The second video was one by Bullet Journal, which had a system for tracking habits that I wanted to use. And the third video was by Biddy Tarot, which had the tarot spread that I used in journaling. I started off with 3 journals. I had a daily journal, a dream journal, and a gratitude journal. I'll talk about these one at a time and their evolution as they went in terms of the changes that I made to their format when I would write in them each time. So starting off with the dream journal, this is my current dream journal, and so far it's the only one that I've used actually. I've managed to not fill up this one yet. So the first entry I had in this was from the 24th of December 2023. So this one had the most straightforward format. It's simply the date, a description of the dream, and then my thoughts about that dream that I would write the next day. So this one I'd have ready to go on my desk so I could write as soon as I woke up, or if I woke up in the middle of the night, it would just be very easy to access and immediately write something. Otherwise, I would forget what the dream was. It's very easy to forget a dream after about 10 minutes after waking up, so having it open and ready to go is a big help. I would write my thoughts about it either at the same time after immediately waking up or later in the day, just depending on if I was strapped for time or not. If I couldn't remember the dreams that I had the previous night, I would write that, or if I did remember but didn't write them down, because sometimes I just have a lapse of self-control and I'm too tired in the moment or I can't be bothered, I would just write that in each entry. I would say, I had dreams, but I didn't write them down, or I don't remember any dreams I had last night. The reason for this was just to make sure that I build the habit of making sure that I do it every single day, because then it becomes a lot easier if it's just something that you view as part of your daily schedule to be doing this every single day. And I haven't actually made any changes to this format. I'm still using the same journal since I started. It's still just the very simple, the date, the dream, and the thoughts about it. So it's worked for me. I've been doing it pretty consistently. I'm about halfway through as well, so there's still plenty of space left to go in this one. I have thought about stopping, but the thing is, it's pretty light maintenance. It doesn't take very long to enter a dream. I mean, depending on how descriptive or fleshed out the dream is. Sometimes I'll have one where I'm writing for half a page, but often it's usually maybe 5 to 8 lines at the most. So it doesn't take super long in the mornings, and you never know when you might get a good idea from a dream that you might use for a creative task, or it's even just fun to look back and see dreams that you had from the past and just remember oh my goodness, this is wacky and wild. Moving on to my gratitude journal. This one had weekly entries, and each entry would be about a person of my choosing that I knew, whether it be like a friend or a family member or a coworker. I typically started with the people closest to me and the people that I felt comfortable writing about. So the way this one would work is I would list three qualities about them that I liked, whether that be things like honest, funny, or supportive, any sort of like descriptive term like that. I would also write about how they portray that quality, like what it is about them that makes me feel like they exemplify that, and specifically an example of a time that they demonstrated that quality as well. Once that was done, I would then take a picture of the entry and send it to them. So I started doing this as an exercise in appreciation and kind of to spread positivity as well, because it's nice, just being able to send this to like my friends or family members and say, hey, here are some things I like about you. You're a good person, blah, blah, blah. In the end, I only did this about 6 times before I stopped. It was nice to do, but I feel like it wasn't doing too much for me. And naturally, it got tougher to do the more entries you did, because you're sending it to people that you're less and less close to, because you do have to be very vulnerable to be willing to write these like sincere inner thoughts and then be able to share it with that person. It's not an easy thing. So maybe I should start it again. I don't know. But it was something that I did a few times with people that I felt closest to. And then I eventually stopped doing it. And then I haven't picked it up since. So this one lasted about 6 weeks total. Moving on to the daily journal. This journal was my main journal and by far the one I wrote in the most. At the front of the journal, I had a habit tracker where I would track several habits that I wanted to try and do consistently, such as exercising or reading. And next to each day would be a box for each habit. And depending on what it is, I would put in a cross to show that I'd done it, or if it was like a quantitative habit, like the number of pages read that day, I would just write the number of pages that I read that day. So that way I could see like consistently over time, like how I'm doing and if there's like any peaks or if there's any valleys in like my performance of keeping up with these habits. In the exercise column, I would write several different things. Sometimes I would do a number of sets. Sometimes I would write distance walked or hiked, and sometimes I would just write dance if I went out dancing at like a club or a concert. So it was a little bit variable in terms of like what I would write into each box. So with the actual daily journal entries themselves, after the habit tracker at the start, I would start the day with a daily tarot spread of 3 cards to answer 3 questions. The first question was, what is seen and known to me? The second question was, what is unseen and unknown to me? And the third was, how can I bring greater awareness to my day? So once I had drawn these cards, I would write down my interpretation from the cards that I pulled to kind of answer those questions about the day. The reason I chose these questions specifically was I wanted to be more present and active in my day rather than like playing a passive role and kind of just letting things happen to me. By keeping these things in mind, I feel like I was playing a more active role in my life rather than just like going through the motions. That's the word I'm looking for. So that would be what I would do at the start of the day. At the very end of the day, I would come back and do the rest. So that would start with a section that I called Something That Happened Today. And I would just write about a single event from the day of my choosing. And the reason for this was to be able to appreciate little things and reinforce the idea that each day was unique and distinct, like something important happened on every single day, and also to prevent days from blurring and muddling together. So by writing just a little thing, it could even be as small as 3 or 4 lines, I'd be able to say, even though often you'll be like, oh, I didn't really do anything this past week, you could look back and say, oh, well, no, something that happened was this, like I found $2 on the ground, even if it's something minor, just something to mark each day as being unique and separate from one another. I would then write about something that I did well and something that I didn't do well. So the reason for these two was to have some self-reflection about the day, think about what good things I'm doing that I can be proud of and I can keep doing or even do more of, as well as some things that I'm not really doing so well that I can work on, or something about myself that I can improve. So again, it doesn't matter how big or small it is. Sometimes it would just be something as minor as I procrastinated because I was scrolling on Instagram too much at the end of the night, something I didn't do well. So then if you see that being a pattern over time, it can nudge you towards making some changes and being like, well, this is consistently being something that I'm not doing well, so I need to make some change in my life to stop this. I would then write about 3 things that I was grateful for in bullet points from the day. Didn't matter how small or big they were, just 3 things I enjoyed about my day that I was glad to have there. And the reason for this one was just to see the good in every day, no matter how small. So even if you feel like you had a really shit day, you're able to see, oh, well, there were some good things here that happened ultimately. And it just gets you to appreciate life a little bit more, if there's something from every single day that you can look at and be like, I was lucky, or I was glad to have that there in my day. And then lastly, I would have a nightly tarot spread interpretation where I would just reflect on my interpretation of the cards that I pulled in the morning and write about what I felt did or didn't happen and different ways that I possibly could have interpreted the cards. I would also have a little free writing section too, just in case there was anything else about my day that I wanted to write about. If this sounds like a lot, it kind of is, don't worry. I'm going to get to the changes that I made to this over time. But the second part of the daily journal that I wanted to talk about quickly was the weekly reflections that I did as well. So after a few weeks of doing the daily entries, I wanted to take things a step further because this was at my peak interest in journaling. It was when I just started, obviously, so I'm very motivated, was looking to do more. So I added a weekly reflection / look ahead, which was a mixture of looking back at the past week, as well as looking ahead at the current week about to start. So each weekly reflection had another 3-card spread, but the questions I would ask were, what challenges will I face this week? How can I best approach these challenges? And what fortunate things will happen to me this week? I then, again, write about my interpretation of the cards that I pulled for each question. So the reason for this was to start the week with a specific mindset and have a proactive or prepared approach for any problems that I may come across. So again, similar to what I mentioned before of just making sure that I don't play a passive role in my life, that I'm actively there and being aware and taking initiative and having autonomy about my life effectively. I would also write about the tarot spread that I had from the prior week. Again, just reflecting on it, how I applied it in my week and how it either helped or didn't help. The next section that I would write about were 3 wins of the week. So this was kind of a mix between things that I was grateful for and things that I had done well. The reason for this was just to be able to take note and celebrate things that I achieved or things that were going right in my life. It was a bit of a fusion between things that specifically I'm achieving and things that are just happening to me. So kind of grander, bigger scheme pictures than just the daily things of 3 things I was grateful for. It's 3 larger, more substantial things from my week overall that felt like wins. I would then ask myself what I did to help me get closer to my goals / ideal self, as well as what I didn't do to help me get closer to my goals / ideal self. So similar to the something I did well and something I didn't do well, this exercise is self-reflective and was designed to help steer me towards the right path just by acknowledging anything that I'm doing wrong in terms of a bad habit, or on the flip side, something that I am doing well that is helping me get to where I want to be in life and being able to encourage that further. And lastly, what I would write about is what I was most excited for next week. So this was just to be able to build excitement and anticipation in my life by taking note of things that I'm looking forward to doing. So that is a lot. Let's now talk about the changes that I made to this. About 4 months in, I started struggling to keep up with the daily tarot readings. I wouldn't make the time for it, and I often just ended up not doing it altogether. So I think it was about 6 months in that I just cut it out completely because it was just something that I did not have the time for, or I wasn't making the time for. And furthermore, I also wasn't really looking back on it or remembering it often throughout my day, which then negated the entire point of doing it, because the purpose was to keep those things in mind during my day to make sure that I was being conscious about my actions, and I wasn't doing that. So I eventually stopped after 6 months and just kind of cut that section out altogether. Another change I made about half a year in is I added a weekly goals section to my habit tracker where I would just list 3 goals or tasks to achieve that week. So this could be things like errands such as book a doctor's appointment, or it could be things tied to my habits. For example, read 200 pages this week. So I would set myself 3 tasks each week and I would tick them off one at a time as I went. Or if it got to the end of the week and I didn't do it, I'd cross them out with a little X. The next big change came about 10 months in. I watched a video from Tim Kane. I'll link that below as well as up here. And he talked about his note-taking best practices. And this made me change my daily entries a little. So I changed it from instead having a something that happened section where I would only write about a single event. I started having a what happened today section where I would put a bullet list of factual events, and I would also put a how did I feel about it section where I would put my thoughts and opinions about each one of these as I went. So this caused me to start writing a lot more in my journal, mainly because I'd be writing about more than one thing, and having that divide as well of just writing the factual event by itself without inserting any feelings into it, and then being able to separately write how I felt about it, what I thought about it. It kind of teaches your brain to be able to separate those two things. And in terms of being able to look back on them as well, it helps a lot in terms of being able to see what really happened and then what you thought or how you felt about what happened, you know? And lastly, the other major change that I made after 11 months, I stopped doing the weekly entries as well, as I often wouldn't have time on a Sunday night or the Monday morning to do it. So it would get to like halfway through the week and I hadn't done my weekly reflection yet. So I also wasn't really reading back on them either, as it didn't feel like they were super useful to me. So that was something as well. After 11 months, I eventually just cut out the weekly reflections altogether. And that's where I'm at currently with my journal. So this was my first daily journal. I filled this one up. This was my second daily journal. This one was very hefty. This lasted me for a while. And then this is my current daily journal now. So I'm about most of the way through this, actually. So I've already ordered a new one to come soon once this is filled up. So yeah, this is everything so far from 1 year of journaling. 2 of these are full, which is these top 2 here. This one here, it's nearly full. Dream Journal is about half full, and to be honest, this one is effectively entirely blank. I only wrote in the first maybe 20 or so pages, so I could use this for another journal at some point if I ever maybe want to pick up doing the gratitude journal again, maybe, I don't know. So that was a lot to get through. I'm going to stop this video here, and in a part 2, I'm going to be talking about the plans that I have for journaling for myself in 2025 and the further changes that I want to make. If you enjoyed this video, please like and comment below what your journaling habits are and how you've changed them over time, or if there's anything from this video that you liked and were maybe thinking about implementing into your own journaling habits. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in part 2.
Bye.